Let me ask you something. Who's the most memorable AC protagonist in recent years aside from Bayek? Go on, take a second. If your mind went completely blank for a moment, or if you had to search your memory, then congratulations. You've already understood what the video is about. Because somehow, after Origins, the protagonists of Assassin's Creed stopped leaving a mark. They are there, they fight, they lead massive stories, yet they don't linger in our minds the way Ezio, Altair, or even Bayek did. So what went wrong? Is it lazy writing, weak character arcs, or rushed development? And today, we're breaking it all down. We'll analyze every possible reason as to why the new Assassins feel less memorable. So, let's begin. There was a time when the Assassin's Creed games were known for three things above all else: stealth, parkour, and most importantly, their stories. Each game in the original saga was built around a powerful central theme. Assassin's Creed 1 explored the truth versus blind faith, Assassin's Creed 2 was about choice, Brotherhood was about power, Revelations focused on legacy, and Assassin's Creed 3 stood for freedom. When you look at them philosophically, you don't just see fictional narratives or moral tales, you see reflections of yourself. And that is the core of every great story. A tale that doesn't entertain you but looks back at you, questions you, and makes you wonder what you would have done in their place. And that's why the older games work so well. We could see Altair in ourselves, we could see Ezio in ourselves, and we could see their struggles, their doubts, and their flaws. And that's the key word: flaws. Altair wasn't a saint, not even close. He was egotistical, arrogant, and reckless. Similar to that, Ezio wasn't born a legend either. He was impulsive, angry, emotional, and blinded by revenge. Every great protagonist had something human in them. Some had anger issues, some were obsessed with wealth, while some were silent, distant, and introverted. They weren't just perfect heroes, they were people. Now let's jump to the RPG era. After Origins, Odyssey introduced full role-playing mechanics. Dialogue choices, moral paths, the freedom to shape the character however you want, all of it was introduced in that game. On paper, it sounds incredible. Be whoever you want, do whatever you want, and forge your own destiny. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It killed the soul of the protagonist. The very reason we connected so deeply with the older assassins was because they had defined personalities and arcs. They grew, they failed, they learned, and they changed. Now, because of this be whoever you want system, we're left with something else entirely: mannequins. Characters with voices and animations, yes, but molded to fit any decision, any morality, and any personality. Their traits exist, but they're diluted, hidden in optional dialogue, novels, and codex entries. Compare that to someone like Edward Kenway, a selfish pirate who slowly transforms into a man of purpose and sacrifice. You felt that evolution. It was earned. But with Cassandra or Eivor, you can be selfless, noble, wise, and honorable from the very first hour. Like, there's no journey to that state, no inner conflict, no transformation, and it feels terribly wrong. As humans, we crave progression, we crave growth, we crave that dopamine hit when a character evolves and becomes something greater than they were before. In single-player games, the story is that reward. So when the very first thing that makes character development powerful is stripped away, when growth is optional, instant, and player-manufactured, the experience becomes shallow. Not because the worlds are empty, or not because the combat is bad, but because the heart of the story no longer beats. What's the name of the series? Obviously, it's Assassin's Creed. Now, ask yourself this. In how many of the recent titles is the protagonist actually an assassin? Not someone who works with them, not someone who helps them, but someone who truly belongs to them. The number is surprisingly low. Most of the time, the protagonist either joins them very late in the story or doesn't join them at all. And that's where it starts to sting. This isn't the first time the series has done this, of course. Ezio only becomes an assassin at the very end of AC2. Even Edward isn't one for most of Black Flag. And Bayek forms a brotherhood only near the conclusion of Origins. But here's the difference. A true assassin isn't defined by the hidden blade, the hood, or the contracts. A true assassin is defined by its creed. Edward had the tools from the beginning. He could take assassination contracts, wear the robes, move like an assassin. But philosophically, he was lost. To him, nothing is true, everything is permitted meant freedom without consequence. It's only at the very end that he realizes what the creed truly stands for, and that is when he becomes an assassin. Now look at the newer protagonists. They have the mentors, they have the techniques, they even have the outfits, but they don't embody the creed. Take Valhalla. Eivor spends a massive portion of the game with Basim and the Hidden Ones. She learns their methods, their ideology, their war, and she literally operates like an assassin. And yet, she refuses to join them. Story-wise, yes, it's explained. But symbolically, it feels like disrespect to the very identity of the series. Not hatred, not ignorance, just detachment. And that hurts. Look, I don't hate Eivor. In fact, among the RPG protagonists, Valhalla is one of the ones I try hardest to appreciate, but I won't blindly praise it either, and this is one of its biggest flaws. Ubisoft clearly wants maximum accessibility. They want players who know nothing about assassins, nothing about Templars, and nothing about the Creed. Basically to jump in without feeling lost. That's understandable, but there has to be a balance. Either your character becomes an assassin or you stop calling the series Assassin's Creed. Odyssey at least had a reason. Cassandra's story was about the Isu, bloodlines, and the foundation of the world itself. But Eivor? Why build such a deep connection to the Hidden Ones only to keep her outside? And now with Shadows, it seems to be happening again. The assassins are present, but barely. They're scattered, defeated, and reduced to background lore until the very end. By this logic, the Creed feels like a marketing label more than a narrative core. It feels more like a powerful brand being used to sell games, rather than a philosophy being honored through story. They did try to correct this with Mirage, and honestly, it worked. The return to a focused assassin, a clear brotherhood, a defined ideology, it felt right again. But Mirage was held back by budget constraints, and its reliance on Valhalla's mechanics. The intention was there, but the execution just couldn't fully match it. And that's the real fear. If this trend continues, if assassins remain optional, if the Creed remains secondary, and if the philosophy that once defined the series keeps getting sidelined, then Assassin's Creed won't just lose memorable characters, it will lose its identity. Any story is incomplete without its antagonist, and Assassin's Creed had some truly terrifying, thought-provoking villains that made you question right or wrong. Take Assassin's Creed 1 for example. The Templars were numerous, but that's not what made them memorable. What made them dangerous was their worldview, their thinking, their ability to manipulate Altair, and to make him doubt his own beliefs, to challenge his very understanding of truth. And nowhere is this clearer than in Assassin's Creed 3. Now, people often ask, why did Connor struggle to connect with fans? Was it just his lack of charisma or his trauma? No. The tragedy of Connor is that he was a soldier fighting a war he couldn't win, against a father who made too much sense. A great antagonist doesn't just pose a physical threat, it challenges the very mind. When a villain makes you rethink your choices, when they push your character to question everything, that's when stakes feel real and the story truly matters. Look at AC3 again. Hayden Kenway is a masterclass in this. He doesn't just fight Connor, he challenges him ideologically. He explains to him the Templar philosophy, the balance between order and control, and why it works. Connor is shaken to his core, even considering peace with the Templars. That mental struggle, the struggle to choose the right path, elevates the story, because mental threats hit harder than physical ones. We all have demons we fight in our own lives, and when a protagonist faces the same, it resonates. Now compare that to the newer games. And here's the harsh truth. From Odyssey to Shadows, most antagonists feel flat. People you can almost breeze past without hesitation. And because of that, they carry no real stakes. Take Odyssey specifically. Some players argue the main villain is Deimos, others say Aspasia, and some even say Cleon. But here's the thing. None of them truly feel like a singular threat. Deimos has potential, but his fate is entirely in your hands. You can kill him or even make him a part of your family. All of these choices ironically dilute the tension. Sometimes the games nail the concept, but fumble the execution. Sometimes the villains are too weak or the protagonist is too strong. Speaking of that, when your hero can beat mythical monsters, what's left to fear from ordinary humans? This godlike persona of the new protagonist makes them feel invincible and nearly picture perfect. Hardships forge character, challenges define them. Remove those and all you have is a superhero and not a human. And that's why modern AC protagonists, despite all their freedom and power, fail to leave a mark the way Ezio Altair or even Edward did. They can sure as heck swing swords, fight armies, and survive impossible odds, but without real struggle, their story loses weight, and their humanity fades. And that is the problem. A true friend is the anchor of any soul, both real and fictional, the one who stands by you in your lowest moments, who makes you laugh, who makes you feel less alone. And the classic Assassin's Creed games are filled with such characters. Can you imagine Ezio without Leonardo da Vinci, or Edward without Blackbeard, Mary Read, or Adewale? Of course not, because these characters weren't just there to fill space, they were emotional pillars. They were mirrors that reflected the protagonist's flaws and growth. Mary Read, for example, forced Edward to confront the emptiness of his greed. Her death shattered him so deeply that it became one of the final pushes toward abandoning the pirate's life and embracing the creed. When Edward remembered his fallen friends at the end of Black Flag, it isn't just nostalgia. It's guilt, love, and regret all mixed into one. Even minor characters left scars. Take Stede Bonnet, the man Edward meets early on, who unknowingly sets him on his path. Later, after training with Blackbeard, Stede reunites with Edward at sea and shares a quiet moment, and then dies off screen. We don't even see it. We only hear about it from NPCs. And yet, it hurts. Why? Because these characters mattered. They were a part of Edward's journey, and by extension, part of ours. Side characters shape heroes just as much as villains do. They give weight to choices and consequences to actions. Now look at the RPG era. I'm not saying there are no likable characters, but there are too many of them. In Odyssey, when I think of meaningful companions, only a few names surface instantly. Those names being Barnabas, Socrates, Herodotus, and Phoebe. In Valhalla, it's the same. We have Basim and Sigurd, and then silence. Why? Because of one thing. Bloat. The world is so massive, the arcs are so stretched, and the cast is so overcrowded that once the storyline ends, its characters fade into irrelevance. Sigurd disappears for hours, Basim vanishes, and emotional continuity is broken by sheer scale. As a result, the impact gets diluted. Some characters are powerful, yes, but most feel like fillers that were specifically designed to extend playtime rather than shape the hero's soul. And then there's the visual problem. Recycled faces, reused models, NPCs that look identical to each other even in major quests. There's literally an Order member in Odyssey who looks so much like Layla that for a moment it felt intentional, like a hidden ancestral link, until it turned out to be nothing more than asset reuse. This breaks immersion. It makes the world feel artificial and cheap. And when emotional attachment relies on believability, this hurts the experience deeply. If you're investing millions into landscapes, lighting, and scale, then you must also invest in faces, expressions, and identity. Fewer characters, but more depth. A tighter cast means every loss hits harder, every betrayal cuts deeper, and every redemption feels earned. Because when a single companion's death can change the entire direction of the story, that's when the narrative becomes unforgettable. We often underestimate side characters, but sometimes they shine so brightly that they end up overshadowing the hero himself. And in rare cases, they become the protagonist of their own story. These are only a fraction of the problems. There are many more, but these are the ones that most players, both old and new, have felt at some point. And the solution to all of this is surprisingly simple. Passion. It's a live truth. When you create something you don't truly care about, it might become popular, but it will never become timeless. But when you pour your heart and soul into it, when you treat it with respect and patience, it becomes immortal. If Assassin's Creed wants to truly redeem itself, it must stop trying to please everyone at once, and instead aim for balance. Not abandoning the classic fans, not ignoring the new ones, but respecting both. A balance between story and gameplay, character depth and player freedom, scale and intimacy, quantity and quality. We've seen glimpses of this. Shadows delivered strong gameplay, but its story felt thin. Mirage brought back the assassin fantasy, but lacked the scope and polish to fully realize it. Valhalla tried to do both, yet drowned itself in size and filler. Every game had a piece of the puzzle, but none of them had the whole picture. What Assassin's Creed truly needs is not a bigger world, but a denser one. One carefully crafted map, one focused narrative, and a world where every character matters, where the assassins matter, and where the creed matters. A game that doesn't rush, isn't afraid to take time, and built not to meet deadlines but to have a legacy. But these are just the thoughts of a fan who loves Assassin's Creed and wants to see the best from it. And we hope that all of it will be back to what it was. Until then, all we can do is wait. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you loved it and want to see more content on AC like this one, then make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.